Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your co-host M2 Dave, and I'm here with my co-host Tom Brady, returning guest King Jr. Say hi, everybody.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What up? What up?
All right. So I think we have to address the elephant in the room in the FGC, and that's the release of Tekken 8. I know not necessarily all of our audience plays the game, but I think at this point, since the game is so popular, we have to comment, say something. Tom, what do you think? Have you tried the game? And if so, what are your opinions?
There are many things to unpack here. Before I even compare it to MK1, I just want to talk about it and its own thing because
Yeah,
games
yeah,
are,
you should.
you know. So Tekken is, I think Street Fighter 6 showed this to some degree, but Tekken really showed it. They showed the benefit toward what can happen when you constantly build upon a good idea and a good idea and a good idea and a good idea and hone it until you finally perfect your game, which is what they did. Uh, Tekken 8 didn't start as Tekken 8. It was many years in the making through different versions of many other Tekken games until we got here. But in this game, not only before we even get to the gameplay, I just want to hit on a couple of things that are really important. Not only do they have features for casuals, they have a quick feature menu, which is the first thing you see when you open the game up. So before you get to your, story mode, online, offline, whatever customization, there's a quick tab, which is the first thing, which is where you can access your character customization, you can access lobbies, story mode, etc. Right? A Tekken Ball, all the things that a casual would have to look for, like is it an offline mode, is it an online mode, is it on custom? No, puts it right there so that you don't even have to search the various submenus. Then, as you go through the submenus, it has more options in those various fields. So for one, it shrinks a lot of that down just so like a casual player, first time playing fighting games, would have no idea which of the submenus to look for these features. They're already listed right there. The next thing Tekken does is it really capitalizes on before we even get to the fighting, just the casual aspect, the fun aspect. Hey, between Tekken Ball mode, things casuals love to do, little fun mini games that are fun. We saw this in the old MK games with, some of the most fun times people had back in the day was in motor combat and things like that, puzzle combat. So it really capitalizes on that feel. Uh, it also, things that casual players love is to be able to individually customize your character. That feel that like my character looks different than your character. Uh, so you really feel like my character looks cool, my character looks badass, which only motivates you to want to play your badass looking character, right? So you really feel just the connection to the character you picked in general, just because you get to customize how they look down to the finest detail. Does a great job of doing that. And the more you play, the more money you earn, the more customizations you can buy and unlock. So it was really cool from that standpoint. Obviously, if you're a new player, not familiar with Tekken, it can be overwhelming. The practice mode is beyond good for you. You don't even have to toggle the menu on. Like MK, turn on advanced this, advanced that. Most casuals have no idea about that. Just in the generic box that is in practice mode without enabling any options, any move you do will give you the total damage, the maximum combo damage you've done. It gives you the hit properties, which Mortal Kombat also does not do. You have to kind of like see where it says like unless you enable the box, you have to see like where it's the words are saying on the screen. It lets you know your attack, your startup frame advantage. Then it says status that lets you know where the opponent, like how they recover on block or hit. Do they recover standing? Do they recover in forced crouch? Right? What type of move is it? Is it a move that will put them in forced crouch? Is it a move that will power crush? Is it a move that will tornado? So it tells you so much more detail on the moves without you enabling a single option. The generic, and I will compare this here, the generic box that Tekken gives you without enabling any advanced options is still more information than you get by enabling every single option in any NRS game in practice mode in history. So it just gives you a lot of information you already know. As you're going through moves, oh, what's that move? Even before you look in the moves list, because casuals sometimes don't always look in the moves list, they just want to kind of do moves. Oh, this move has them recover and crouch, or this move has a tornado spinning move, it's a tornado move, or it activates heat. It lets you know all these things right there in that menu. So the practice mode is great, even if you just take the bare bones basic part of it before you get to the advanced stuff. It's absolutely amazing. Then again, more customization. Tekken has got some of the coolest soundtracks in fighting game history. And in this game, you get to customize any song on any stage. Not just that, you get to customize the regular in-game menu, the customization when you're customizing your character menu. Like, all these things are customizable. Like, it's a completely customized experience for you. And then you can save multiple playlists. So you can have all this, all the stages, all the areas be one thing, but then say, but some days I may want to switch it up. You can have multiple playlists saved so you can switch it up from day to day. There's just in its customizations is a 10 out of 10. Then it's story mode. Normally in Tekken, I don't care. I know the story. I've known the story in Tekken since the beginning of time. Really hasn't deviated all that much. This game, I actually watched the whole thing. I went and looked it up on YouTube, watched the whole thing while I was at work, watched the whole story mode. Never done that before in a Tekken game in my life. And besides MK9 story mode, which reinvented the way story modes were done, this destroys all story modes altogether. It probably even destroys MK9. No, not destroys it, but it's close. This is before you even get to the fighting. So if you're a casual player, you're already blown away by all this. Then the netcode, while not perfect, is significantly better than the game we're just coming from. Significantly better. The inputs, the way the delay works, all that. I have no problem blocking the same speed mids and lows of like a smoke overhead and a Baraka overhead 10 out of 10 times. I don't think I've ever been hit by one that I've seen. I've been hit by some that I've seen late, so I reacted late. But ones I see right away, get them every time. And you don't have anywhere near the input delay that you have. None at all. Then the communication. There was a similar bug to MK1. The day of release where you're queuing up in ranked and you're getting disconnected. Harada, within minutes, and I mean minutes of the game's launch, acknowledged the problem and it was fixed within hours. Not 45 days. So again, if you're a newcomer to the game, all of the things you're absorbing, and then you see this level of communication, which is a lot better than looking for an answer and all you get is Go Chiefs. So it just, and then you get to, you want to queue up in ranked. The rank system in general, the ranking is give people more to strive for. The ranking system in Tekken is quite advanced. You have a lot of things to go through. And it has a real connection filter, not a deny all. So while you're in ranked, you can obviously accept or deny anything based on what you're doing in practice, whatever. But you can set it to, you want no restriction in rank, so it can find you anybody. You want 3 or above, or +2, that's it. And in Tekken, you rank them faster if the person is the same rank as you or within one rank, within the same window of rank of you. As far as like, if you're in gold rank, the person's in gold. Purple, they're in purple. Red, they're in red, so on and so forth. Blue, they're in blue. You can say, I only want a 4-bar connection. When you're in queue up and rank, the first thing you do is you choose your practice stage, your character, etc., and you're automatically in practice mode. The stage you want, etc., you can practice all the features of practice mode right there. While you're practicing, the connection thing comes up. It lets you know if the person is on PC, PlayStation, Xbox. It also lets you know the strength of the connection, all the information you need to accept or deny. Also, you can easily move from game to game to game because you're constantly getting match requests. You're not sitting for 10 minutes waiting for the next match. And then, of course, the presentation, the graphics, the stages, second to none. Probably the most beautiful fighting game ever created as far as that goes. And then you get to the gameplay, and it's top notch. All the characters are crazy. They let the shit hit the fan in this game, and everybody loves it. The fact that I could go so long about so many things before I even got to the gameplay, which to me is the most important thing. But when you can rave about so many things before you even get there, that tells you that the game truly has something for everyone. And that is where Tekken 8 is. And that's how I feel about it initially.
I think you, not just right now, but also in your latest video, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 20 minutes long. I think you did a good job summarizing everything. I think it's important um, because Tekken back in the day, Tom, you know this, used to be known as this boring game, like some competitive Koreans played, and then everybody else was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, there's nothing really in it for me. The game has changed dramatically, and I posted a link. Uh, the credit goes to the Van Hops. They did like a summary, and I think it's crushing everybody on every other fighting game on Steam. Going by numbers, like I think it has. The game is played more than the top 10 fighting games combined, at least in the past week. Um, we don't know the sales numbers yet, so we shall see how that works out. Um, but I think it's good to see. Because again, for a long, long time, Tekken was known as this boring game. That maybe just it's being enjoyed in the eastern hemisphere of the Earth. So I'm very, very happy
And
to
you're
see
speaking
this.
back like Tag 2 kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like it goes even back before that, right? But so I'm very happy to see that the game is doing well. I'm enjoying it a lot as well. Um, for all the reasons that you're mentioning. Franco, I know you. I'm not sure if you have the game. Would you like to add anything to this discussion?
No, I don't own the game, but I did play Tag 2 and other Tekken games in my childhood. And I'm not like, I'm a pretty beginner level. I really just look at a few combos in the moves list and use those. But um, like, I'm nowhere near your guys' level at Tekken. I just use King and do a few combos. That's really it. But um, just from the little things I know and have done in Tekken, like I always enjoyed the game, even though I'd never played it at a high level. Like the story modes are pretty cool. Like they weren't like the best from what I remember, but they were still fun and entertaining. And um, I would also play these games like Tekken 6. I would try to achievement hunt a little bit as a kid back then. Uh, I'm not really big on achievement hunting anymore, but yeah, just very little stuff that I did in Tekken. I thought it was a good game and it was definitely fun to watch. All those qualities sound really good though that you guys mentioned about it, and I also watched Tom's video on it. And like, if I could pick any soundtrack from any MK game, you already know I'm gonna blast the Deception Armageddon soundtrack all day.
I think we all do that. Yeah.
Oh man, shout outs to Midway.
Well, I guess kind of I guess the other elephant in the room, if there are two, if there are two in this room, it's that NRS slash Midway games. If you want to go back in the day, is they used to kind of have all this stuff, right? MKX was a pretty damn complete game, right? It essentially pioneered online fighting games, right? It was released as um, with a mediocre netcode, and then they overhauled rather the whole game, and they did the expansion, if I'm not mistaken, and it did all the stuff that people fondly remember to this day. Yet they somehow didn't do that for this game. I just don't understand. Maybe I do. It's probably Warner Brothers, but it's a tough pill to swallow. It's so hard to understand, right? Uh, again, I don't know how many times we want to talk about this because I'm honestly getting bored of it. But the online for this game is nowhere near where it should be. It still isn't. Like again, Tom talked about how Rada like fixed one thing like less than 24 hours. The desync, how long did it take? Month, month and a half. I don't remember.
45
Like for
days.
that,
Well, again,
yeah.
while the online isn't where it needs to be in this game, coming from Mortal Kombat, it's significantly better. And it still feels good, but it's not Street Fighter 6.
We're talking
So
about Tekken, right? Yeah,
yeah,
it's not.
so there's room for
Street Fighter,
improve.
yeah, Street Fighter,
There's
yeah,
room
Street
for
Fighter,
improvement, but it's
yeah.
drastically better than MK. Like if MK had this netcode, it would be acceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think somebody in the chat mentioned I saw that Street Fighter 6 is a better netcode, the best
Absolutely,
rather.
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Um, the game can still like randomly freeze once in a blue moon. I'm getting that when I play certain people. It's not very common at all, but it can still happen. Uh, As long as you play no Wi-Fi, max bars, it's playable. There's no question about it. It's fast. It's also very, very like you in
Mm-hmm.
practice mode, 5 seconds. Here's your match. You play, right? Has
Mm-hmm.
crossplay, obviously. So it's very convenient and it works, right? You're practicing, you're doing your combos, you get to pick the stages, that you want to. You get to pick your tunes. I mean, the game just works, and I think the game will sell massively if it hasn't done already. And I'm happy to see that. Um, and again, has basic functions that man oh man, I wished MK1 had. That's really all I have to say.
There's something that I do want to talk about, and I want you guys' opinion on this because I think this really. So I've been around for a long time, and I want to point out how Mortal Kombat has done things and how Tekken has done things. Tekken. So there are those people out there, even on this podcast, that have made the insinuation that Mortal Kombat, the NRS scene, are fighting game babies. Just brand new scene. Just and the mighty Street Fighter and the mighty Tekken have just been around for so long. And this is not really true. It is, but it is not. See, Tekken was in the gutter. In fact, at the point of Tekken Tag 2, Harada was on the hot seat because the game did not sell the way they thought it would. Even in Korea, the reason why they came up with Tag 2 Unlimited is because even in Korea, people didn't like the two characters. And they were like, okay, well, we'll make Unlimited so you can just pick one with double the health. So you still play one character. Of course, that was banned in tournaments, but in the arcades, you could still do it. But Tekken was on a down note. They were well under Mortal Kombat, and Tekken was at the very bottom of the bottom of the bottom of all fighting games. Very niche crowd, didn't have, the backing of the things like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, etc. But then Tekken went through a restart. And now they're 10 times bigger than MK, the MK scene has ever been. And they're going to have thousands of people at EVO. We won't. This game has got so much support. It's bringing in so many new players. So it is possible to do it in less time than we have. So this nonsense that we're fighting game babies, that's not true because Tekken went through a full restart. What Tekken did is very much what Capcom does. And they both did it at similar times. Tekken 8 didn't start as Tekken 8. It became Tekken 8. You know, this is basically, at its very base, Tekken 5. And they added and kept, so they kept a lot of the same moves, would add characters, added the wall system with, multiple hits on the wall. Tekken 6 added more characters, more moves, more different properties on the moves, added wall break, bound, floor break. Tekken 7, more characters, more moves, added armor, rage art. Rage was added in Tekken 6. All these things that, instead of bound, went to corkscrew. Now we have heat. Still have power crush, which has 3 reactions now when it absorbs the move: hit, normal, hit, counter hit. All the heat stuff, like I said. Introduced chip damage, which is recoverable, but it's just another layer. Instead of corkscrew or bound, now we have tornado. Just a lot of mechanics they've done to get where they have. What they have done, though, is they have honed their game. Because, like Capcom, they kept a strong legacy base, which allowed them to do multiple things. I brought this up in my video, and I brought it up with Dave as soon as I played Tekken 8. And I said, if Tekken did what Mortal Kombat did, let's say they had a 2.5-year development window. If they said, we're going to redesign every character, scrap all the mechanics, scrap all the moves. Do you know how long it would take them to redesign every character, redesign thousands of new moves that are nothing like the old ones? Now all new properties, all new mechanics. By the time that 2 years was over, they would barely have everything in the game. It probably wouldn't be functioning the way they wanted. Then they'd have like 4 or 5 months to rush all the other content in. And what do these moves do? It would come out just as unfinished as Mortal Kombat. But the difference is games like Tekken and Capcom, they use a lot of their base game and they continue to add to it, which is what Tekken did. And I'll just use Tekken. I won't even use Street Fighter here as a base here. They don't scrap ideas that are good and start from scratch every time. They build on them and build on them and build on them and build on them until they got this. Mortal Kombat, if you really look at when they were the most successful, when they made their big name, MK1, MK2, MK3, games like that, guess what? MK1, same high punches, low punches, high kicks, low kicks, roundhouse, down, high punch, sweeps. They kept those same universal normals. Johnny Cage still has shadow kick, has projectile, a nut punch. They kept a lot. They might have added run to it. They added, the 3D stuff with weapons, but they kept a lot of the base of the game. If you look at MK Deadly Alliance, then they went to Deception. They still kept a lot of the base of the game, right? And then Armageddon, but they added like air combos and all kind of crazy juggles and throws and things like that. But they still kept a base. They were very successful in doing this, right? The 3D community stayed with the game and they made a lot of money. Midway did because they recognized the game they were playing, right? It was very similar to the game before, only with improvements, only with more. Same with the arcade Mortals until they went 3D, then they kind of lost a lot of people. Then they went with MK9. And, MK9 wasn't that dissimilar to MK DC in a lot of ways, in a lot of the way the mechanics worked. It was 2D, obviously, and it didn't have a whole lot of legacy, but it kept a lot of the mechanics, right? The new breaker system, things like that. And then they added a whole bunch of stuff, right? It made it a lot more advanced. MKX, not really that much like MK9 at all, but a lot of the special moves still kept their legacy powers. Characters, not so much. But really what's happening now is NetherRealm, and always having to start from scratch, this is the first time this has caught up to them. See, in MKX, they just scrapped way too much. And the variation system, which was cool, but for some characters, it was more of a gimmick. And as good as MKX and as fun as it would have been much better with no variation system, giving all the characters their moves. And, think about, If a character like Kung Lao had his teleport, dive kick, buzzsaw hat, orbiting hat, all these things in one variation. Think about all the creativity you could have, things like that. Even a character like Quan Chi or Ferritor, if they had all those things in one variation, right? I think would have had more depth in general. Think of how strong a character like Kotal Khan would be as opposed to more weakened because he had to pick one of 3 variations when in reality he needed all of them in one. So they started that gimmicky thing. In MK11, it was a disaster. It was a total gimmick, the variation system was. And then now it's terrible. By not... All of NetherRealm's mistakes are hitting them at the same time. The lack of legacy has finally killed them. They have to spend so much of their development. Let's say the game is a 2.5-year window. It probably takes them 2 years to design all the characters, put all the moves in. At the end of those 2 years, now they have 6 months to decide how these characters play. What are these moves going to do? What are these cameos going to do? What features are we going to put in the game? Oh, how's the netcode going to play? You have to cram all that into a few months because it just took you so long. And they never build upon anything. They never improve upon anything. It's always a new idea, start from scratch, and hence their games are always unfinished now. Never really flushed out. Never really perfected. The next thing that Legacy does is it allows you to keep your scene. If I look at Tekken, I see Knee. First of all, let me just say this. Tekken went away from Legacy one time. So for all you NRS guys that say, you just want the same thing, because Tekken Tag 1 was very popular. Tekken 4 did not really capitalize on Tekken Tag 1's how big it got. That's what really got Tekken to be a big thing. First time international competition came over, etc. Tournaments begin to grow for Tekken. But you know this, Dave. The top players, and any historian will know this, Jang Iksu, Jang Suwan, Park Young, etc. When Tekken 4 came out, they're like, no, I'm done. No. They didn't go to it. They lost a lot of that. So they had new players like Mad Dog Jin, Nin, etc. But they lost a lot of the old players. So Namco never made that mistake again. When you see a guy like Knee, that guy comes from Tekken 5.
Correct. And same thing from Super Turbo to Third Strike was the same.
True.
Because the games were so different that, one game, Super Turbo, the zoning was very strong, right? And then Third Strike, it's like, why am I having these fireballs? Like, they're all parryable. It was a completely different
Exactly.
game, right? So the
But
same
those
people
companies
play the
didn't
game
make that
ever.
same mistake again.
Correct.
And keep in mind, Third Strike needed a resurgence, which was only possible because of Marvel, and they were able to bring, because of Marvel,
Yeah.
they were able to fund bringing top Japanese players over. And Third Strike, it was called the Third Strike Resurgence. It was a movement. You know what I mean? Third Strike became big in America long past its actual prime because it had like a resurgence. When you look at a guy like Knee, right? These guys that came around from Tekken 5. And then you look at Tekken 6, right? They brought, besides guys like Knee, you had so many players, that were good over in Korea. Knee, JDCR, Saint, so on and so on. I could name a million of them. In NA, you have fighting GM, Anakin, Lil Majin. I don't want to miss anybody. There's a million people, a million people there. Rip, multiple Evo finalist, a guy I've worked with many times. Shout out to Rip over there. But these players kept growing, and I only listed a handful. But if I had to think about it, I could list 100 of them. And then in Tekken 7, you have newer players, Arslan Ash, etc., right? So they're not losing the competitive playing field. Tekken becomes like a snowball going down a hill, turning into an avalanche, collecting more and more snow. Their scene may not have obtained as much as Mortal Kombat, but it retains, and MK does not. MK obtains, then everybody says, not what I thought it was. Goodbye. Doesn't retain anyone. And that's really the problem. Had NRS stuck with either MK9 or MKX, and I'm only using those two because they were the two most beloved Mortal Kombat games in the NRS era, not because, oh, you just want it. No. 'Cause that's how our community thinks, which is an even bigger problem. Nobody in Tekken said, Jang Ik-Su, he just want to do them electric. No. They're like, I don't really know if we're feeling this game. It's a problem. Had they done that, not only would we have a more complete product, we would have the players we had today, all great players. Ninja Killer, Sonic Fox, Deoxys, Rewind, Combat, Mighty Unjust, Sweetie, all these guys. Foxy's still here. We would have all the players we have today, but we would still have, DJT, while he's still good, is not the world mega power he once was. And I understand you have life, you have things you have to do. As skilled as he is, he's not the Omega DJT. We also don't have MIT at all anymore. We would have them both at the very peak of their powers. We would have guys like Tyrant. We would have Rio. We would have all these guys from back in the day. Even old scrubby me, right? You would have multiple gods of Mortal Kombat just going against each other, and that field just keeps growing and growing and growing. It would build better audience hype also because Tekken has so many of these players. As far as people bring up how they're able to monetize their content, I see Anakin has tons of people watching. Rip has tons of people. Lord Aris has tons of people watching. You got JDCR with thousands of people watching. You got Qdons. I mean, you got so many people. Mortal Kombat, you have Foxy, who draws a very good crowd, but it's pretty much Ninja, Sonic, Fox, and everybody else has to fight for themselves with a couple of hundred. Because our scene is like there's only two people worth watching. If it's not those two, who bothers? And our viewership is less because we just don't have the player. I mean, the formula NRS has used has destroyed its scene on many, many, many fronts. It has prevented a more quality game. It has prevented a more in-depth game. It has prevented a bigger and better tournament scene. It has prevented the scene's ability to retain and grow. It has prevented people's ability to monetize their content and more eyes on the game because you have so many people that are streaming and are getting so many people watching. They have destroyed, and then it's all compounded by Warner Brothers saying, oh, by the way, we don't care about you anymore. We're not giving you any money. It's all compounded by that to make it 10 times worse. Every mistake NRS has ever made that they have gotten away with has all caught up to them at the exact same time, which is just, it just feels like the sky is falling because of all these things hitting them simultaneously. And for those people who don't realize, Mortal Kombat didn't used to be this scrubby fest. Like, for example, I'm a Sub-Zero player, and I'm not trying to talk. I'm just going to explain to you the difference between people who don't understand how advanced Mortal Kombat was and people who think today it's rocket science. As a Sub-Zero player, most of you people have the brain of a chimpanzee. So you see Sub-Zero back in the day, and you say, oh, we just want to hide behind a clone. It's never been further from the truth. I'm just going to reference a game like MK9. I don't need to. I can reference MKX as well. But I'm only going back to the two most popular NRS games because they are the games that had the most mechanics, the most advancement to them. So for me, the only way you could ever hide behind a clone, quote unquote, that never existed. You would have stalemate matches like against Johnny Cage. And here's the beauty of it. He couldn't do any moves and I couldn't do any moves. Because I had no way to damage him. Nothing I did chip damage. So I had no way to damage him without approaching him. But if I approach him, I'm going to die. While he had a fireball, I can slide it. So he couldn't do that. I can do ice balls, but he behind a clone, but he would just nut punch and go under the ice ball. So he's building meter every single time I even do a projectile. So even if he doesn't have meter for Shadow Kick, if I try to check him with any freeze randomly, he can nut punch under it and continue to build bar. So it's a stalemate where it's just pure strategy. It's not that he can't approach me. I also can't approach him. So it's not just Johnny Cage going, oh, woe is me, the clone. That's how it is at very low level. And it's the same thing for characters like Sonya. So it's a very advanced strategic stalemate match. Now to, like I said, the chimpanzee or Tyrannosaurus brain person who exists in our community today, who tries to kind of play it, Red Nose, I'm calling you because you're one of them, who tries to play it out like, it was just so simple and whatever. It's never been the case at all. And then when you look at other characters that like kind of want to zone me out, right? I have to find ways to get in on them, get around their zoning, corner them, trap them. It's so much harder in open space to kind of deal with all that, right? And then some characters that are very aggressive, I still just can't even run away from them. I still have to kind of fight them offense versus offense. And there's a lot of strategy to it, a lot of strategy to the game, a lot of advancement in not as simple as do this and profit. It's never been that way. And not even in MKX, I think they did dumb it down a little bit because of all the 50-50s. They could have easily combined the two games. They could have had a run mechanic if they wanted to, or give some characters a command dash, other characters not. Something along those lines. Some characters would mix. Some would just be like, not mix. They didn't have to make everyone mix, so to speak. But in general, they were on the right path. And their games were not as shallow as people try to make them out to be. There was a lot of... That's kind of why people love those games so much. And I'm not even talking about are they broken or not. But for anyone that wants to say this is broke, that is broke, I think Tekken 8 shows that they said... We're going to break them all. Hey, thanks for the raid, Scar. Tekken 8 says we're just going to break every character. And everyone's like, hell yeah, it's fun. Whereas NRS is still on the, let's be a little cautious. It just so many things that have gone wrong with them. And MK, if they built off of something and continued to build on it, Mortal Kombat would be one hell of a game. But as long as they keep doing this formula, and for anyone that wants to blame Warner Brothers, while Warner Brothers is the company that says, hey, you better get this game out by this day, NRS clearly has to know that they can't design a new game from scratch in that time frame. And Warner Brothers doesn't tell them play it safe. They doesn't say you have to be careful. They don't say you have to start from scratch every time. That is an NRS decision. Them and they alone and their bad decisions is what put this community where it is. And that was only compounded by Warner Brothers not giving a shit about anybody but their bottom line.
Let me say this, because you have said a lot, and I think I agree with probably like 90% of it. There's no question about that. As I've said in the past, you're right with NRS changing stuff. I don't know why they do it. I don't work for them. I don't know what's going on. But when you really compare Street Fighter and Tekken to MK, you're really comparing apples to oranges. You really, really are. Because the games are just not meant to last. They're just not. Their own business model. If you want to change the game in 2-3 years, you want to not change the game. You want to release a new game every time. You can't have,
But people are not happy with that anymore. They're not happy with that anymore.
I understand, but you can't. How do you build a scene? How do you build even a game? Like, I mean, we have talked about this so many times. I'm getting bored of talking about it. But
before you go, I just want to add one more thing. In comparison, when you compare the mainstream fighting games, NRS has the least amount of features, the worst netcode, has the least amount of fun factor, the worst graphics, the least amount of customizations. It's the worst in every possible category.
No, yeah, I'm not denying that.
Not going to work.
No, I'm not denying that. But I'm saying in in the amount of time that Tekken, well, it's Tekken 7 or Street Fighter 6, right? I'm sorry, Street Fighter 5. It took years to to build a certain meta, right? Whether it's early Tekken 7 meta, right? Where people literally thought Geese was mid tier, Nakuma, ended up being super broken.
True.
And yeah, and then you had some Street Fighter 5 stuff there as well, right? Like, but that took months, if not years, to figure out. By the time something gets figured out in an MK game, guess what? Next game.
But here's why this happens, because they don't build on anything. They basically did a gimmick. They took the character Kung Lao. They said, we're going to take all your moves, give it to a cameo. We're not going to give you any moves besides an armored launcher, but tag in Goro, it's a launcher. Like that's all. How? Of course, that's going to get figured out in 24 hours. How can it not? And I would say Kung Lao, as he is, just using him as an example, was figured out 24 hours from now, or 24 hours from when the game was launched. And then you have other things. There have been previous characters in MK games who will do things like Sub-Zero was one of them. Other characters were one of them as well that had good specials, where they would do their attack. If their attack hits, combo, if it's blocked, cancel in a special, which gives pushback, right, or whatever. People don't like that because where's my turn? But isn't that what Raiden is right now? He does a low string that is high crushing and will mid crush in certain instances. When it hits, easy hit confirm into a 40% combo. When it's blocked, easy block confirm into Storm Cell into Kano into it's still his turn, right? And because we're always having a flawless block Storm Cell, no one wants to block in the middle of it. We try to flawless block the hit before the Storm Cell comes out. So he's always stagger, and we manage block, neutral block. It's just so stupid. There's already characters in this game that are everything that people claimed they hated from other characters in the past. Yet some of these characters do the exact same thing, only they're far simpler. They're not advanced at all. It's very simple. They get in for free. They do what they want for free. It's just like you said, it's not built to last. And that's
Let me ask you
it's a
this
problem when
question.
their competitors are. Yeah, I said enough. You and Franco, go ahead. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, let me say this, and I want to bring Franco into the discussion. At what point do we just say, look, MK is what it is nowadays, and that's what it is. You want to play it? The game is going to last 2, 3, maybe 3.5 years. That's the support that WB and NRS are going to give the game. You either like it or you don't. If you don't, go play something else. Franco?
Hey,
that's the
sorry,
problem,
I
though.
was
They did. And by the way, I just want to say, just to add insult to injury to those who aren't watching, and I'll make a video of this separately. There was a pro event today in which somebody lost in the last round of the last match of a set because somebody abused the bug that allows you to move before it says fight and did a full combo on them for 40% before the round, right as the round started, they couldn't block it. And that was the last round. This is happening in a Pro Series tournament.
Franco, what say you about
Like it can't.
again?
It's the perfect time, Dave. Like I said, this could have happened at any point in the game's life. It just happened to happen right now when Tekken 8 is out. The mistakes and the sloppiness of NRS have all hit them at the same time at the worst time.
Franco, what do you think?
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack and everything you guys said, and it's cool to see and hear like history from the other games. Like I don't know as much historical things as you guys do with Tekken and Street Fighter, like especially the OG ones. As far as Street Fighter go, my times kind of start with Street Fighter 4, and Tekken for me was like Tekken 6, like history wise. But yeah, as far as the NRS life cycle goes, and my bad if I take a second because you guys talked about a lot of stuff. as far as like
No, take your time,
how
man. Take your time.
as far as like the legacy aspect of things goes and how successful it's becoming and how it's showing how successful it is with like Street Fighter and Tekken and more so Tekken. Um, I think in NRS's case, it would be best to like out of all the games, we would say MK11 was by far the worst and the most bland, maybe least favorited, you know. And then MK9 is usually mostly praised or MKX. Um, Me personally, my favorite games are MK9, X. If it was pre online or pre hotfix MKX, I would say that would probably be my favorite MK game. But the hotfix kind of ruined the game a lot in a lot of areas for me. So yeah, MK9, X, MK1, and then MK11 would be like how I'd rank the MK games. And hypothetically, I guess my solution would be to solve this issue would to be base your next game. And I know this is very far from now, but just hypothetically speaking, make your like base your next Mortal Kombat game off of the one that was like perceived the best, maybe competitively or not even just competitively, because the story modes were better in the past games. Um, a lot of people don't like invasions and the content that MK1 has to offer now. So, but yeah, like MK9, we'll just talk competitively since usually the podcast revolves around that. Um, let's just say they based their next game off MK9. They stopped caring about the complaining and they broke every character like Tekken and Namco did, and Street Fighter 6 probably still does that to an extent. Um, so like who like just forget about the complaining, break the characters like you did back in MK9, let the archetypes exist, stay traditional to like keeping breakers in the game like they always had them. No breakaways, no air escapes, no unblockable interactables from Injustice. Like, um, maybe no like interactables that you can dive kick off of like from MKX because horrendous, dumb. So like no variations, no pieces of characters, like all of that stuff. Just go back to like the way that things like the MK9 were. Just like imagine if you could have like not an exact game like MK9, like literally like a remastered version, but like imagine if we had a new game that played like MK9 but without all the bugs, with all the perfections we wish it would have had back then, like the online servers and all these other things, like that I guess that would be like I guess the hypothetically speaking, that would be like a thing to do with their like span of like with the lifespan that their games are usually having now, like which is like 2 to 3 years. Um, so I guess you could say like MK9 2.0 or something. But and another thing too, and not to hold the floor, but
Take your time,
Injustice
man.
One,
Go take as long as you need.
Injustice One, I'll name it as an example because I think you guys said like, what did you guys say about Geese? Like, was he like a secret? Like, was he claimed to be mid tier on release, but then had some dirt later on or something that people took a
Correct.
long time to figure out? So
Yeah.
like that type of development doesn't happen with our games a lot, unfortunately, because of the lifespans they have or being so short. Like when Injustice One was still relevant and was the newest game, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this if people even care still, but people were saying Bane was like top six. But if you fleshed out the game like me and my brother did, like there's a bunch of matchups that like we figured out way more than our community did when the game was still alive. Like Bane lost a lot more matchups in my opinion. And I was saying this even before the game died, but Bane fell off in the tier list like to mid tier in my opinion in the end. there was a lot more better characters than people were saying they were. Like Catwoman was not this mid tier character. I would say she's like probably top 10, like in 2024. Um, Even though Batman got nerfed and stuff, like we found out a lot of dirt with him that we think could make him top 10, and like all these other things that you would never figure out in like a 1 or 2 year lifespan, pretty much. So I think that's another good thing about, I guess, Legacy, is you're just constantly building off a foundation that you already started, which makes it easier. The only thing I have with Legacy, I guess, though, is like it probably makes it more intimidating for newcomers, which like a lot of people talk about in our scene, like from NRS's scene. Like, yeah, I want to play Tekken 8, but like there's all these people that have been playing it for probably almost 30 years. So I mean, I guess that's the only downside to Legacy, but um, that's just kind of like with anything in
But there's
life, I
still a lot of
guess.
new stuff right now. You see like some of the more experienced Tekken players, and they're getting mashed out by the new character Victor, etc. No one knows what he does, right? So you're not handicapped totally, right? There's still stuff that people have to learn and new mechanics that people have to learn, right? So that's what keeps the game fresh. You bring back the old players, but they want to come back because the game has got a lot to keep it fresh and not stale because you've improved on it and added things. And you've got things for new players as well, so it's not like a cut and paste of the previous game. Perfect formula.
Yeah,
Perfect formula.
yeah, and another thing about that too is like in our NRS's situation, with how much you release games, you're gonna run out of ideas for Mortal Kombat. Like Injustice is more legacy, but with Mortal Kombat, like a lot of the new mechanics they introduced, I really didn't like that much. Like the only like I didn't like Breakaway from MK11. Like a lot of the new mechanics were from MK11, to be fair, but yeah, a lot of those new mechanics I just didn't like at all. And like um crap, I lost my train of thought, to be honest. But yeah, the new mechanics, like if you keep trying to create new ideas in the short times, or with how often you release games, you're just bound to kind of end up with a mess. I think they should just stick to the basics of like MK9, maybe MKX, kind of, as far as game mechanics like breakers, and maybe throw in run cancels again or something. I don't know. Just as long as it's not an abundance of game mechanics like MK11 to where it's just a mess.
People forget, but if you play Tekken nowadays, when you hop kick, right, it's gonna hop over lows. But that at one point was incredibly controversial. And this was after Tekken 4 that they brought up in Tekken 5, right? But Tom, you remember. The community was
The crush
vivid
system
about
isn't as bad as it was. So basically, you had Tekken
yeah.
4, in which there was no crush system. So unless you were a kind of an oddball character like a Ling, who still didn't beat Steve, you had to go through him. And the character is designed for you to never go through him. So it was a long day on some of those days in that game.
To say the least.
But then
But
in
the point
Tekken
is,
5, they went too far with it. So they found a
yeah,
balance. Then it was like,
yeah.
all people did was like, oh, I'm minus 100, crush, high crush, right? Low crush. Then it was, then it went, they went too far with it. And then decides that they couldn't get it right? The backdash cancel was a little too good. Then it wasn't good enough. Sidestepping, a little too good, then really toned down. Now they kind of loosened up the sidestepping a little bit. It's a lot better. So Tekken was looking for that right balance, right? But there's no way they were going to find it if they were scrapping everything, then rebuilding it from scratch every time. There's no way. That's kind of where NRS is. Is not like, don't know how to make things work. And the thing is, their number one concern seems to be, how do we make these things so people don't complain? Not Tekken. They were like, fuck it, this is fighting game. Welcome to fighting game. Let the shit hit the fan. Surprise, everybody loves it. Who knew? All of us did.
Well, look, I still think MK1, just the core gameplay is fine. in my opinion. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I think it's somewhere in the middle. Would I design a game like this? No, I wouldn't. I would say, look, if I were at Boone, I'm like, look, give me a traditional one-on-one because that's what Street Fighter is. That's what Tekken is, right? Give me archetypes. Yeah, people are gonna complain. I don't care. They're gonna complain about command grab characters. They're gonna complain about dive kick characters. They're gonna especially complain about zoning and whatever else, right? Don't care. Your game is gonna sell anyway. So what's the point? The people who play your game, they're not gonna play the. They don't play for the gameplay anyway. They're gonna play story mode, maybe hop online and play for 20 minutes. They get off, right? That's it. There's only one thing that they have to worry about. Don't design stupid archetypes that not archetypes. I'm sorry. Don't design stupid gameplay uh, styles that make the audience quit your game within 5 minutes. That includes stuff like I don't know, stupid teleports, stupid projectiles that have no recovery, etc., etc. You guys know what I'm talking about. That's the only rule. Like really, like you can't do that. Like I don't think it's even that complicated. That's the only rule, right? Because you don't want new players picking up a game and then somebody's just shooting wrist shot, wrist shot, wrist shot. You can't move, right? You don't want that. Same thing with teleports or command grabs, etc., right? We know, So when two casual players play the game, and if one casual player has to 3 or 4 times, they have to be better 3 or 4 times just to counter that. That's bad design. That's the only rule that they have to follow. Everything else should go, right? Why does JP work in Street Fighter 6? Because he's not scrubby. Why? I don't know. Certain Mishimas and I'm just notorious for vortexing you, right? Well, how many people can actually wave dash into hell sweeps? How many people can actually wave that into WGF? Like scrubs can't do that. That's the reason why those designs work. And you need to make it, and you need to promote those designs. You need to create those designs, and your game will be okay. Stop this bullshit about variations, cameos, utter nonsense, completely unnecessary. One versus one, design complete characters, and take it from there. It can't be. It's not that complicated. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, Franco.
I was just saying I agree. Like, give us complete characters. Stop or catering to the complaining, or stop caring about it, and let everything just be broken.
Done.
I mean, I'm gonna be as honest as possible here. Mortal Kombat 1 will never recover. Now, when I say it will never recover, that doesn't mean that it's dead. It is salvageable, but it will never recover. Maybe in the next game it can recover, but this game will not. It will, if they do certain things, well, it won't die. It won't live either. It will survive. There's so much that has to be done. The online is only the tip of the iceberg. Because even if NRS fixed the online tomorrow, netcode pristine. All the online features are there. Queuing individual characters, so you don't have 5 PSNs to rank up a different character. All these things. Fixed all that. Even made invasions enjoyable. Nobody cares. Because the problem is, people don't want to play the game under any circumstances because they don't like it right now. NRS would have to do all of that and then absolutely omega steroid buff not just every single cameo, but the characters. If they fixed all that, and then the word on the street is, not only did they fix all the online and everything, the characters are crazy in MK now, people will come back. If they don't overhaul this game and do that, the game is done. And for some people will say, but Tom, COTR just had 250 people sign up at it. So that means by this time next year, they'll have what, 50? Because those numbers don't go up, my friend. They only go down unless something changes. This game is in real, real trouble. And the only thing you're going to get from NRS is go Chiefs. That's about all I can say about it.
I do want to add that because I've tried so hard not to call people out, and and I'm going to continue to live by that rule. But Harada and Murray, and I forget even the producer for the Smash games. I forget his name. He's kind of
Um.
yes.
Oh my god, I know his name.
Yeah, yeah, he's an interesting character as well. But if you remember his name, feel free to interrupt me
Yeah. When I do, I'll blurt
yeah.
it out.
But the point is,
Crap.
they released like an hour-long presentation about the gameplay, how they're gonna support you, how they're gonna support the competitive scene, and
Sakurai.
yeah, Sakurai, and what dates the tournaments are. What do we get? What are we watching when we watch the combat cast? I don't even fucking know. I just don't know what are we watching. Sometimes we can get just straight false information like about characters. I have no hope. I haven't had hope since MK 11, and that's the way I treat NRS now, and even the games. I play it. I have fun sometimes. I enjoy using Reiko. I like Katana. Those are my two favorite characters to use in the game. Am I going to play the game more than Tekken? No, never again. But how can I, right? For all the reasons that we have just mentioned, it's so hard to play the game when your game has like 10 problems, many of which you pioneered in the past. You had the best online, you had the best story, you had the best single player content, and now your competitors do. And honestly, I don't know what else to say. Like, I just don't. Like, there again, as Tom said, there are so many things to fix with this game. It's even do we still have no crossplay, right? Don't we, right? Is that correct? And it's been like what? How many months has it been? I don't think at this point, I don't know what complaining it's going to take for them to add some of this, like the bare minimum standard that Tekken and Street Fighter have had on day one, and they still don't. And their fucking communication is garbage, and as are their tweets, and as are their combat casts, because they address absolutely nothing that people are talking about. They're talking about like some third party horseshit that nobody gives a shit. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's very, very frustrating, guys. It really, really is. But that's the state we're in right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure how Franco feels. Let's give Franco the floor here on this.
I No, I do like the game. It's
As I said, sorry, Frank. I wanted to. I actually, again, just to give you a quick example, I was like, you know what? Let me take a break from Tekken. I hop in MK. Let me just play some ranked. Connecting match. I have to wait 3 minutes. You know what? No, no, I'm not gonna play it.
That's because
I'm gonna
there's not many people on
go
it.
ahead.
That's because
Maybe, maybe, maybe. But by the way, while it was trying to press ups with whatever 0, whatever 4 on PlayStation, it wouldn't. That means
and
the
there's
game
one
froze.
more thing I want to say to this before you guys continue.
Yeah.
For years, we have been talking about problems like this. And there are people in the community who will tell you it's all propaganda. The real problem are the people who are sounding this alarm, right? We're the problem in the community. The people that demand better. Well, it's selling just fine. Did you see the money in the Pro Series? Then when everything is going downhill, we all realize the problem has always been the people who tell you to be quiet and take it. Because I'm going to tell you something else. It's not just Warner Brothers who comes for your money. It's a lot of your pro players who didn't want to say anything or do anything as long as their pockets were being lined by Warner Brothers. It's a lot of your commentators who didn't want to say anything as long as their pockets were being lined by Warner Brothers. They are just as guilty as taking your money and giving you shit as Warner Brothers is. These problems were ignored for a long time so that other people in your own scene could profit off it. This is why things are the way they are. No other scene has this. Normally you see the problem, everybody speaks out about it, it gets done. Then there's our scene. Very difficult to affect change when that's going on.
And arguably, it may also be the company that takes everything the most personal. Um, we know this from MK11. I think there was a tournament. I forget. Was it Titanium Tigers? He said something, and I think they
His
banned him or
name
something.
said, "Why did NRS do this?" about Shiva Stomp. And they
Yeah,
disqualified him from the tournament.
there's nothing like that that I've ever even remotely heard of. This is not even like, some kind of racist, sexist, like whatever, right? This is not even
Someone in the chat
offensive.
said
It's just,
Arslan Ash criticized Tekken 8 day one, and they put him in the commercial.
yeah. And he's, if you, at least from, I don't know, depending how you, what's trending, but whatever, if you click on Tekken 8, you will see his face. Uh, Being advertised, as the best Tekken player ever, whatever, won Evo, et cetera, et cetera. Um, It's unbelievable. Absolutely. Like, this is honestly, you can't make this stuff up. But Frank will go ahead and jump in.
I was gonna say, I like the game. It's fun. It's not as fun as like MK9, maybe even MKX, but I do think the communication could be a bit better, and I think they can still like the game's still pretty young, so like they can still make improvements. Like I granted there
It's
should
salvageable.
like
Yeah, it's salvageable.
yeah
But would
like
you agree that the
uh,
only real way it's going to get any speed is they're going to have to mega buff everything to bring people back?
yeah they're gonna have to buff a lot of things for sure. Um, Whether they do that or take that route, I don't know, and I'm not sure how much longer like or how much more characters we're gonna see in the future in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that's what like the expected this game was supposed to be given or support like 2 to 3 years. Um, so I think like we talked about on the last podcast when Chameleon came out, it kind of sparked people's interest a bit, and you gotta keep the snowball effect going while it's still rolling. So as far I guess next character would be Peacemaker. So hopefully we see some things in the Peacemaker release or combat cast whenever that kind of points in the direction that they should head in for the game's future.
Yeah, I'm not really too convinced. Honestly, I just wanna. I'm just hoping, man. I wish I just want to play Ermac. That's my thoughts about Peacemaker. But I understand, like, people who watch the show, they might be more exciting than I am.
I want to
Um,
see a mid command grab character like that doesn't need meter to
oh, you
make a
might be
mid
with
command grab.
You might be waiting until MK20.
I mean,
It's like for the Iceland to be viable.
it's not even about that. I'm just waiting for the game to be enjoyable again.
I
And
know, I know.
and people will say
But
things like, "Oh, you could play and be good." People that can play and be good are streaming Tekken 8. Literally every single one of the top NRS streamers are solely streaming Tekken 8 right now. That has never happened. None of those say all signs point that things are going the right direction. And really, how did nobody see this coming? How did nobody see this coming? And if anybody ever tried to say this is where we're headed, immediately shut down. Hater. Hater. It's more alive than ever. Than ever. This is the most alive MK's ever been. How could anyone think that? Just, that's why we're here.
well, I think it's Tom you who mentioned that, and I forget who else, maybe Foxy and other people. For the first time in a long, long, maybe ever, they have competition, and that competition came in and they're swinging. They have their fists ready and they're swinging. Like Tekken is bringing it on. I mean, again, for all the reasons that we have just mentioned, the game is great and it's gonna make a lot of money. And Street Fighter has like sold what 3.5, almost 4 million copies. So it's it it's a war, right? It's competition, and for the first time in a long, 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 long time, if you don't deliver nowadays and you put up a game where your online is trash or you can't play because there are these things for 2 months, and you decide to address the issue a month later, just acknowledging it, and then it takes you another like whatever half a month to fix the issue. No, you can't have that. You cannot have that. This game, unfortunately, will probably go down the route as Street Fighter 5 did on release. Um, the game had nothing on release, but unlike Street Fighter 5, the game will not last for 6 years. We already know why. We just discussed it. And unfortunately, I believe that will be the end of this game, and that's how it will be remembered. And I'm fairly certain that the next game that NRS releases will not be anything like this, at least not in terms of online functionality and single player content. It'll be very, very different uh, because the voices have been heard and they know that they can't have this standard for a modern fighting game.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Their competition is, man, I don't think they saw this coming with Tekken 8.
Everybody knew Tekken
There's
was going to be
no way they
popular.
saw this coming. They just thought it'd be
Everybody,
business as usual. They just thought business as usual. Yeah, 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 sure, sure. And
everybody knew Tekken was going to be popular. Like if you just look at, if you go to the, I forget what the exact YouTube channel is, but if you look at the views for like the trailers, all of them, almost almost all of have at least 1 million views. Maybe not the most recent ones, but you look at like Lars, I think King is like almost 3 million, right?
true, yeah.
So those are your those are customers, guys. Those Harada is like looking at it as like, yes, that's money. These people will buy the game, right? Doesn't matter if they're competitive players, casuals, they will buy the game because they want to do a pedigree in a Tekken game. That's it. So if you didn't see this coming, you're a fool. Of course, Tekken is going to sell well, and we already know again from we don't have the exact numbers, but we know the game is going to sell very well, and Street Fighter has sold very well. So there's competition out there, and again, you cannot release a modern fighting game with this type of netcode, this type of single player content, with these type of issues. It's just not going to work out, man. And they're getting hammered. They're getting clobbered as they should. And the next time they release um, a game, I assure you it will not be like this. And again, I hope we get better communication. Uh, the nonsense that they're spewing is complete garbage. They need to address the issues, not talk about shit that nobody cares about. Um, but I want to give you guys the last word. We're going to continue the podcast, like the after hour podcast after we finish for YouTube. Franco and Tom, any final comments on this topic? Tekken, MK, or anything in between?
Frank, you want to go ahead and go?
Saying is your word.
I pretty much am the only person that lived their whole life in Mortal Kombat from never leaving it. So when I say I literally lived this game, I put my life into it. I actually have. So I'm gonna say the last goddamn word. Yes.
Yes, Tom deserves it. So Franco, respect your elders, bro.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think I guess the best thing at the moment that NRS could do is just really communicate and try to redeem themselves and the things that like fix these glitches that start the round early for the glitch user or whatever. Like fix like the online related things first. Obviously, don't even like I would prioritize that over gameplay, like and balance, communicate, and yeah, just try to come back within the DLC patches. I think that's the best thing that they could do right now.
Um,
Man, when I see Tekken 8, and I look at some of the players who've been around for a long time in that game, they love their Tekken. Good ass Tekken. Good ass Tekken isn't a saying, it's an ideal. It's an idea. And Namco made it happen. And the people, they love their game. Mortal Kombat didn't used to be this. This is never what their games were about. And somewhere along the line, Warner Brothers or NRS, whoever, bought everybody's silence. They created a subpar game in MK11 and said, it's okay. We'll give you some money for the Pro Series. And because of that, none of the players who were in it really wanted to say anything. Best game ever. Love it. MK1 comes out. That game was the worst. So they kind of bought everyone's silence. Tekken is where it is because Tekken didn't start about money. It came from a community who loved their game. MK stopped being about the love of the game and it started being about what can the game do for me financially, not about do I love it. Nothing like that is made to last. And I just really think an overhaul is what's needed in the game to allow us to overhaul this community. And if they don't do it, the game will die immediately. And I lived my whole life for Mortal. I mean, I was there in 1992. I traveled constantly for all of them. I can't think of too many people that traveled as much as I did for MK4 who even liked that game. I did. MK versus DC, I traveled for 20-man tournaments to California. I went to West Coast Warzone for a 25-man MKDC tournament. Nobody cared. So I didn't do it for glory or for the props. Nobody gave a shit. 25-man tournament. Who cares? Didn't do it for money because I certainly didn't win any, but I certainly spent a lot of it. Did it because I love it. I love it. So when you guys hear me talk, it really has nothing to do with hate or whatever. It's pure passion because I love the game. And when I see, I mean, I'm watching Anakin. As soon as Tekken 8 goes live, and he's singing at the menu, the theme song of, our time is now, and the chat's like going crazy. Nobody cares about that with Mortal Kombat. People can't even get it. MK players can't even get out of bed for combo breakers $10,000, and MK players can't even get out of bed for 10 grand because they don't like what they're doing. It is just give us back the game we love. It's all you have to do, NRS. We want to be just as happy and like, oh my God, this is awesome, as everyone else is. Man, just give us that again. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
With that said, guys, I know it's been a Tekken-esque podcast. Hope you still enjoyed it. Please let us know how you feel about the current state of MK1. Are you enjoying Tekken 8? Please let us know in the comments. We would love to read about it. On behalf of my co-hosts, Tom Brady, King Jr., I'm M2 Dave. We're out. Thank you so much for watching, guys.
Thanks, everyone.